I'm going to call this meeting to order. Stowe in the roll.
Helwig.
Here.
Holland.
Here.
Humphrey.
Here.
Genowine.
Here.
Lettler.
Here.
Price.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Collier-Wise.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have minutes from the December 20th regular meeting and special meeting.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Move the agenda.
Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Visitors to be heard. When addressing the council, persons addressing the council should use the microphone at the podium. Please raise your hand to be recognized. Go to the podium and state your name and address. For items not on the agenda, members of the public may speak under visitors to be heard on any topic not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes, and no decision will be made at this time. For agenda items, public testimony will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item after the subject has been announced by the mayor and explained by staff. Any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item. Public testimony will then be closed and the topic will be given to the governing body for possible action. At this point, only council members and staff may discuss current agenda items unless a council member moves to allow another person to speak and there is unanimous consent from the council. Questions from council members, however, may be directed to staff or a member of the public through the presiding officer at any time. Seeing as we have no one in visitors to be heard, I'm assuming. Is there anyone on the council that has anything not on the agenda today? All right, seeing none, we do have one proclamation today for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. And Julia?
Thank you. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to the advancement of civil rights and public service, he believed in a nation of freedom and justice for all, and challenged all citizens to help build a more perfect union and live up to the purpose and potential of America. And whereas Dr. King recognized that everyone can be great because everyone can serve, and during his lifetime encouraged all Americans to serve their neighbors and their communities. And whereas in 1994, Congress initiated the King Day of Service, a nationwide effort to transform the federal holiday honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. into a day of community service, grounded in Dr. King's teachings that help solve social problems while focusing on bringing people together and breaking down the barriers that have divided us as a nation. And whereas hundreds of thousands of volunteers in cities and towns across the nation participate in King Day of Service projects in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Guam, Puerto Rico, and whereas the King Day of Service, which falls on Monday, January 17th this year, is a time for the people of Vermillion to recognize Dr. King's teachings on advancing equality and opportunity for all by contributing their own time and talents in a day of service. Now, therefore, be it resolved, we, the governing body of the city of Vermillion, South Dakota, do hereby proclaim January 17, 2022 as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, and encourage our citizens to honor the memory of Dr. King, to put his teachings into action by participating in the MLK Day of Service, dated at Vermillion, South Dakota, this 3rd day of January, 2022.
Thank you, Julia. We have no public hearings or old business. We'll move on to new business. Our first item is resolution of intent setting a public hearing date of Tuesday, January 18th, 2022 to consider a lease of city-owned building at 12 Church Street, the former Carnegie Library building. John?
Thank you, Mayor. For the city to lease property by state statute for a period of 120 days or for an annual amount of $500 or more, it is required to set a public hearing for that. Before you tonight is a resolution of intent to set a public hearing for your next council meeting on Tuesday, January 18th. The Carnegie Library building, 12 Church Street, since the late 1970s, we have leased it to the city attorney and other fellow attorneys working with the individual. With Mr. McCullough's passing, we do not have a current lease with the current occupants, so that's the need to set that up. So the resolution before you tonight would be just setting the public hearing for January 18th, and we would have a lease for you to consider at the meeting that evening.
Thank you, John. Council?
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is addendum number 1 to the County and City Building Construction and Use Agreement for Joint Law Enforcement Center for Custodial Services. John?
For many years, the city has paid direct wages, or we have paid the individual directly who has provided our share of the cleaning services at our Joint Law Enforcement Center. The county is moving to having a facilities management director position. As part of that position, they're going to move all the custodial services underneath that. And so they have proposed, and currently this position, the cleaning staff is supervised by the police chief and the county sheriff. Perhaps not the best use of their time, but nonetheless the responsibilities they've had. The facilities management director would be overseeing this operation. And the county has requested that instead of paying a portion of an employee supervised by another one of the county staff, that we would just have an addendum to this agreement where we would pay approximately $10,000 a year to the county and 4 equal $2,500 payments per quarter to them for custodial services. That's very comparable to the number of hours that we have built into our 2022 budget for janitorial services. So the dollar amount for 2022 is very much equal to what we have been paying, or we're planning to pay this year. So the addendum before you this evening allows for that change for a Joint Law Enforcement Center agreement.
Thank you, John. Council? Second. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is our 2022 payroll resolution. John?
So state statute requires the annual publication of salaries with the minutes of the first meeting of each fiscal year. In our case, our fiscal year began on January 1st. The payroll resolution before you is similar to what we've presented in past years. We list all the different employees. We also list city council members, volunteers that are serving our boards and commissions. We include the volunteers as to help with our insurance coverage to show that they've been recognized and employed by the city council. The 2022 budget does include funding for the resolution before you this evening. It does basically provide a 3% cost of living adjustment for city council members, city employees, and then there are some wage changes as provided for in any of our 3 union agreements. Again, all these have been budgeted for. If we do have changes, and we will throughout the year, those changes are reflected in the minutes of the council meeting following that change when it took place. So we'd recommend approval of the 2022 payroll resolution.
Thank you, John. Council?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to bid openings. I believe we do have fuel quotes.
Awesome. So we received 4 total bidders for these winter fuel bid results. Overall, Gersner Oil will be the low bid for pretty much everything in between. Currently, right now, we have for the 4,350 gallons of unleaded gasoline at 10% ethanol, $2.6196 is what Gersner Oil out of Yankton recommended. For item 2A, 1,500 gallons of number 1 diesel fuel dyed, they had recommended $2.8159. For number 2 fuel dyed, 1,500 gallons of that, they recommended $2.4859. For the average cost of both 2A and 2B, it was overall, again, the low bid of $2.6509 for that. For 3A, 1,500 gallons of number 1 diesel fuel clear, we again have Gersner Oil out of Yankton with $3.678. For 3B, we have 1,500 gallons of number 2 diesel fuel clear for $2.7378 as well. And then the average cost of 3A and 3B would be $2.9028, so roughly $2.91. Again, Gersner Oil out of Yankton with the low bid overall for all of the items right here on the fuel bid.
Thank you, Stone. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Aye. Motion carries. City Manager's report. John?
Thank you. The city offices will be closed on Monday, January 17th for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Just a reminder then, their city council meeting will be on Tuesday, January 18th. Our Christmas tree collection site is open and we are still accepting real Christmas trees. It's the same location as past years on Broadway Street, just west of Dakota Street. We do ask that you remove the plastic and any sort of coverings that you might have to transport that tree. And the site won't be open until through January 18th. Next meeting of the City Council will include an ordinance for the ward boundaries to reflect the 2020 census. The City Council looked at that at your noon meeting today. The only change that's going to be brought forward for consideration is to move 2 blocks from our central ward into the northeast ward, and we'll be putting some information about that on the city website later this week. And I've probably been pushing my luck, but we haven't done that yet this year. But just a reminder that sidewalks are to be cleared 24 hours after the end of a snow event. So in the event we do have one of those, please make sure to clear your sidewalks within 24 hours after the end of that event. That's all that I have, Mayor.
Any questions for our city manager? Okay. Moving on to invoices payable. Any questions on invoices payable? We don't have Katie, but probably somebody could answer if you had a question. Got a motion and a second to pay our bills. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no consensus agenda. We've got a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. New record!
Yeah.